Hello everyone. This is a check-in for week 4 of our weekly licensing theme challenge. If you remember, this week's theme was in the kitchen, and the idea here, as you recall, was to really find ways to look at our space a little bit differently. So with this shoot, I looked out my window, I looked at my countertop, I looked at my bar, just various things in my space to help me kind of just re-envision what I could be doing and to really prevent myself from making excuses, because my mind gets trapped in that space of I don't have the right things to shoot with, I don't have the right space to shoot in, blah, blah, blah. So this was a challenge to both myself and to you to create images that are viable for the book cover market in whatever space we happen to be in. I know some people did use friend spaces, which is totally okay. It's basically, the idea is that we want to use spaces that we have access to, and sometimes we don't have access to awesome studio space. So again, in my particular situation, I spend a lot of time in my home and I tend to take it for granted. So again, this was just an exercise for me to try to look at things in a little bit more of a photographic light. So what happened was, this was another shoot that Trevelyan did not want anything from, which boohoo, kind of, it always stings a little bit when they don't accept anything. However, I did submit this shoot to Archangel, and so you are seeing the images that they did accept on the Archangel side. So I'm going to take you through the whole shoot again, show you what was rejected, and again, this is what was accepted. So one thing to just kind of note here, and we did talk about this last week in our check-in, is that there's not really a lot of similars here. In fact, I think that the only one that I would say is super similar, well, there's two sets that are maybe a little similar. So the apple here, and then these two in particular, because the perspective didn't change at all. It was really just me as the model moving. So everything else is quite varied, and this, I guess you could argue that these two are somewhat similar, but the processing sort of differentiates them, whereas in the other case, the processing is exactly the same. So this was really an attempt on my part, again, not only to look at my space differently, but to really get better about variation. And because these images here behind the countertop were really the only time that I did any self-portraits, it was really great for me personally to be able to kind of, again, move around the space, look at various objects, and be able to kind of create a submission that wasn't just slight variations on poses, which it's really easy for me to get stuck in that trap, especially if I'm the model and the photographer. So having that stationary tripod is what really makes it kind of easy to be lazy, I guess. Whereas when I'm a photographer, I'm moving around the subject all the time, or in this case, moving around the space. So variation is key. So now I'm going to take you into the full shoot. So I'm going back into my contributor portal here, clicking on all, search. And so you can see this particular week, things are a little bit out of order here in these submissions, but I submitted 69 images. So there are a number of them in here that we can see that they did not accept. So I think one in this particular batch here was accepted. The other two are just variations on processing. I think on the agency side, they probably hate seeing that. Like they probably want to see your best processing, not 3 of the exact same image with different processing. In fairness, they were slight variations just in terms of the shot, but that's something that I have to get better about on my end. So I've got kind of the same thing here too. Like, I need to be better about calling these. Actually, you know what? I think all 3 of these ended up being rejected because it was one of these 2 here. So only one of the images with the whiskey, which was iced tea, were accepted. And then, just a couple of these here were accepted too. So, Yeah, I mean, again, what I'm kind of disappointed about is that the chocolate picture and none of the cherry pictures got accepted. Some of those are, this one was my favorite of all of them. But, what I can do now is I can look for images that absolutely have no similars in them and submit them to the next agency downstream. But it looks like there's actually not a lot of them. So I've got a couple of these lovely teacups here. They didn't get accepted. All of these images here with the knife, I think the variations are played out. So like, I think they accepted this one and then this one, right? So the ones with the cherries, I could probably submit this cherry and these, but the ones with the cherries and the knives, it would probably be a little dangerous to submit to another agency. So if we go back to page 1, just trying to see if there's anything else. I don't think that these apples with the peels got accepted, so I could submit those. This window didn't get accepted, I could submit those. But really, there's not a whole lot in these here and the chocolates could get submitted. So, and the cherries by themselves. But yeah, there's really, that's kind of the danger of doing these, is that you do really need to shoot for variation. Because the less variation you have, if one image out of a set like these with the bottles, I think only one of them got accepted. So it would be, I think, a breach of contract for me to take these other images that didn't get accepted but that are very similar and submit them to another agency. So again, as we move forward in this challenge, definitely I'm going to keep an eye on shooting for variety. I think that, despite the fact that there are a number of these that are similar, this is probably my best shoot in terms of variety. So, just a learning curve to kind of keep on keeping on with. So anyway, I hope this was helpful, and I will be checking in with you again as soon as I hear back from my agencies on our next week. Bye.